our presenter tonight is Tony Vento from NI. You're Senior Director of Broad-Based Business, is that correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. Look forward to hearing what you are presenting today. As a reminder to the community, GDevCon North America is in July. I don't know if you can still buy tickets to that one. GDevCon EU is in September. I believe you can still buy tickets to that one. And gdevcon.com for the EU signups. We'll want to decide when about we want our next user group meeting. I assume September-ish, but if someone has better suggestion, I appreciate feedback. And I do want to say thank you to Freck for hosting the live event for NI, for feeding us and for presenting. And Tony, in specific, thank you again for presenting. I think that's all I have. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
As a note, we are recording. I see the recording in the top left of the thing, so be aware we are recording if that is something that you want to be wary of.
Okay, so let's dive in. And by the way, I will say that I've got a whole lot of material hot off the press here, so you're going to see new things, right? We just had NI Connect, and we've got a lot of updates on the LabVIEW side. And we'll also add, I'm certainly glad to make this as interactive as you want. I mean, I got a whole set of updates, but
This is no secret. We can share it.
yeah, that's correct. I actually added a couple things for you, but even that we've said enough that I think that this is open. Yes, so it's fine to record and share. I'm going to put this up first. So it is interesting that I have been with LabVIEW the whole time. So I was the first application engineer. It's kind of crazy. How do you do something for 40 years? I kind of bought
I
it.
know what it did 25.
Yeah. And you can go through. So on the left-hand side, there's the main releases. I'm a LabVIEW. I'm not going to go through all that unless anybody wants to choose any questions. That I sort of put myself back on the other side. Again, that first day for LabVIEW, I was out in the field then. It was kind of interesting that I was a regional manager up here after that, huh? So it's for the Northwest and Northeast. So in the 90s, I was up at the bluff. Yeah. So, I really do enjoy this place. So it's nice. Nice to be back.
Wasn't the first community edition 2019 though?
Oh, you know what? The community edition was 2020.
Well, it was announced. I clearly remember in Amsterdam. So 2019 GDevCon. And I read announced that it would be, so maybe the 2020.
2020 would have been released in 2019.
I think it might have been, but anyway, it's that time, right? So, yeah. And then I worked worldwide. I came back along the technical side of the application engineers, and then I was on the executive team, writing feedback to Dr. Trishard, as well as running the partner program. After that, went through an interesting time. Dr. T left, and anybody working with him pretty much left at that time. So I left NI for some number of years. While I left, I still always worked in the ecosystem. I was always working with partners, even in the meantime. And I formally came back at the beginning of last year. So I've always worked with LabVIEW during the whole time, either directly with NI or through partners. And I will put one more perspective up that I look at this sometimes and I say, I think really we've been through 5 periods. If you look at NI, there was a startup period. I'm not sure how much you ever heard about, but LabVIEW 1 was on the Macintosh. And I tell you, anybody that's ever been a startup, part of life, you have to get lucky. And we were lucky to be on the Macintosh because they put up with us. Yeah. and then the real luck came that then we ported it to Windows right when Windows went to Windows 3. And so that was 1993. And I'm telling you, we could not have timed that. We was just luck, right? We just have to be ready. And in the nineties is when we just grew like crazy, right? That was the whole fast growth. And then we kept that going, it's steady growth, right? I mean, we still had a lot of products in the 2000 time frame and kind of look from the LabVIEW side. And then we had a lot of changes. And I use this from our partners called the dark years. It really was probably dark years for changes. NXG didn't work, and I had to change the shift. And it wasn't, some of what they did wasn't all bad, but it was still a challenge. But now these last couple of years, I think it's fair to say we're back and LabVIEW's back. And I'll show you a few indications on LabVIEW on this as well. So there's a backdrop. One is that I'm often asked the question of why does LabVIEW continue? You know, how has it made to 40 years? I think there's three big reasons. The first one is that front panel block diagram interface. I mean, it was genius what Jeff Godowski came up with on that. I mean, the first time I saw it, I couldn't believe it. And now after 40 years, it's still very unique. I mean, I'm pretty good with Python also. And you can do user interfaces in Python, but it's just not the same thing. You got to do callbacks and so on. I mean, I can do them, you can do them. It's not that hard to do, but I think that, and I think that's going to continue to bode well. I think it's the integrated libraries for hardware. And again, I think it's important also on the hardware. It's not just NI hardware. We've always supported third-party products as well, right? From the instrument companies. And in fact, on Tektronix, the first instrument driver. So when I was the first AE for LabVIEW, first thing I did was the instrument driver. So I wrote the first ones. And the first one I did was for a tech scope.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, right. It was tech first and something, I think it was APDMM or something second. But so you guys, you were the first on that, the third-party protocols. And I think the third big reason, though, is the block diagram approach. I mean, you look, engineers and scientists are still trained in block diagrams, to think in block diagrams. It's not just graphical programming. I think it's even above that.
You don't have to sell LabVIEW tools.
No, I hope not. But some people still question it. So that's good here. You can look through the rest of that. I think the dedicated support from all of you, the innovation policy, Create Edition, and then LabVIEW on the desktop real time.
I'm a very big proponent of community edition. That has been a game changer for me and other stuff.
Okay. It's very important. We finally got the introductory price. LabVIEW right.
That limitation though on you have it hopes you have to jump through to get previous version of community edition simultaneously with the latest one is standards.
Wow, you like to find hard problems.
Oh yeah.
You can always find something with software, but I do think it's fair to say.
The pain in the ass in this group.
Okay, all right. Okay. Fair enough. But I do think that we got it right on the community edition. I think that was huge, right? To just open that up. We need to do that.
1919
time was there. Yeah, that was overall good. Yeah. Of course, with LabVIEW, we do more than LabVIEW now. I'm going to mainly focus on LabVIEW. I'm going to touch a little bit on the others, but sometimes we call this LabVIEW Plus with the Instrument Studio, FlexLogger, VeriScan, TestND. System is not in there. It's a separate product. But now if you really look at application software, we have all those. And again, you've probably seen, hopefully, that you can follow all the roadmaps and such on them. I do think there's this very, very key moment that we've had, and that's Nigel. Right? I mean, Nigel has been the biggest thing for LabVIEW in a long time, probably since the community edition. And I do think it's important, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about Nigel and AI here for the next part of this. But if you look, there's really three parts to Nigel right now from where it is. One is the advisor. And that's where, as you know, that if you have LabVIEW or TestND, you can open it up and answer the question. It's an LLM. And who's used Nigel? It's good.
I don't, because it's not available in community edition.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if we work on that. Anybody else? Yeah. I mean, I use it. I mean, it's just so nice to answer questions, and you don't have to go work on the web. And, you know, I will say we have NI.com, and that's challenged for a few years. We're finally getting that fixed. That's the last part of NI back. You're going to see a few more updates this year on NI.com. So finally, but it has been so hard to find things on that. But Nigel will find it for you automatically.
Yeah, it would be such a big help in documenting a project if Nigel could be asked to, you know, write descriptions for all the VIs in batch.
Yeah, well, we're keep working on it. I mean, we did a little bit of it, right? I mean,
in a folder or in the entire project, but in batch.
Yeah.
Because currently it's limited.
What do you think?
Well, it was when the last time I.
No, it's
On the roadmap to change.
Yeah, you're going to see a whole lot more. I'm going to talk a little bit more here in just a moment. So what you said is correct. And so I think that part about the LabVIEW piece, it's been a step forward. Yeah, I think we probably almost made more progress on test stand. It's easier in test stand because test stand's text, right? And so we have those pieces. Even though with LabVIEW, I was explaining earlier that this gets into a little bit of the details, but LabVIEW does create an intermediate version. It's called a DFIR. Yeah, for data flow intermediate
Yes, that
format. And that is text. And that's actually how Nigel does a lot of its work. It takes the text from that.
doesn't take XML, VTT
No.
representation.
Where would it get it from?
Yeah, they're right. It did. Right now, it's its own text. Yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be at least more context to it? I understand you couldn't use DFI, but getting that XML representation to LLM to show part with the pictures themselves and DFIR would give LLM more understanding.
It's a lot of work. It doesn't exist.
If you do go
What
back,
doesn't?
The XML
Oh, yeah.
representation is blocked
It
out.
does. And that's another thing. I grew in I rep on when I meet. I mean, it's kind of similar to pretend. It doesn't.
even almost a bigger point though, is that on NXG was going to have a text-based
Yes.
CI.
But
That would have been huge.
But the fact that it exists in regular LabVIEW has been out there for like what, 15 years, 10
Is it?
years at least?
You mean the DFIR?
VI Lab? No, not different. XML representation of both front panel and the block diagram,
Yeah.
which you can get, and you can then modify the text. Well, not you, because it's kind of messy for a human to read, but LLM would. And all it takes then to make a new VI out of it is to calculate an MD5 checksum.
Well, stay tuned because yeah.
And that would open the LabVIEW to the world, just like you have the text-based language, as far as I understand.
Well, that is one way to do it. And of course, you can type text-based languages into LabVIEW as well. Right now, that's not the same thing as LabVIEw. Open
No.
that
I
way.
I'm talking specifically about that representation because that would and LLM works with text, and if it had the text for the XML or VTT, that verb was stacked. Sweet.
Okay.
Then it's combined with pictures. It would even understand how to place the elements. It could match like the coordinates written into that XML too.
They've got to work through the hask before they start expanding on what they don't have.
We have so many things that are in front of us right now. Yeah, but I do think you're going to see some things. Let's keep going here with this. I did want to put this up, and this is what I said I was going to go a little bit internal on, but for the user groups, we said we were just going to start showing it. But this is the activations of LabVIEW, and it's purposely a little small on text because it was supposed to be. But on this gold one, that's the LabVIEW activations for LabVIEW 2025. It's the highest in the history of LabVIEW. Yeah, that we get these questions all the time. Is LabVIEW going away? Is it going to make it? And so on. And you know what? From the beginning, people have always questioned, can you do graphics and so on? To this day with AI, there's going to be some people that say the world is only going to be Claude, right? Or whoever, take your pick, right? And some people are always going to say that. But I tell you, we have several different indicators, but this may be the biggest one. LabVIEW cannot be more alive. Yeah, from when you look at this. Yeah.
Is that new people adopting
That's
or
a really
people
good point.
upgrading and from?
Excellent point you made there. This is of all users. And so you can already have a license. And so part of the benefit of this is because a lot of people were using 2021, for example, and we didn't give them a reason to update. Right? There wasn't enough new in the product. And so we finally gave them a reason to update. So this is the activation of 2025, but it is not all new users. Right. And so a lot of that is over. So we have had some number of new users. So I would say that's an incremental step that we made, not quite as big as this, but at least we finally get people a reason to upgrade to the newest version. And you don't have to upgrade every single year. We've said that for quite a while. Maybe every number of years it could be a good idea, but we finally gave everybody excuse to do this. So that's a really good observation because we do need to, of course, we always got to add more new users on it as well. And we're working on that.
Okay, another question from there. Why do way fewer people upgrade in August?
That's a lot of this is a release cycle.
Mm.
Yeah, and so that is a really good point, right? Because that's when the Q3 version comes, and so LabVIEW 2025 Q3 was released last August. Yeah, and so that's why I got the steep.
No, but every other year, there's just V.
Q3.
Okay.
The August is the release. And now we do 2 releases a year. But before that, it was always August. We were just doing 1 release for quite a while, but now we do 2 releases a year. Yeah, so good observation. But again, it's an important point that LabVIEW isn't alive and well, right? It really is back. I could go through a few more examples too, but let's just say that we have that. And so here's the 2026, and this is kind of interesting. That this is a brand new slide because this has some indication of what's in Q3 as well, right? The LabVIEW 2026 Q3, and I'm going to touch on that. And that will be, it should be scheduled end of next month is when we're scheduled. Somewhere in the next 2 months, this will be released. And so we figured it was close enough that you can see it. And so the key is, I mean, you can look through that. We are doing development in LabVIEW again. We have been able to build the team up. I'll dive a little bit. I mean, we had a huge team working on LabVIEW, and then it went to a really small team. But we have been able to build that team back up again. And so I think that's a really good thing because now we see this, right? And clearly Nigel, what we talk about a lot. But there are a lot of other features in there too. I think I could probably address anything on there. Either I can address it or I can find more if you want to see it.
I am so excited about that Unicode support being on there.
You and me, it's unbelievable that we have not had that before. I work around the world a lot. It's unbelievable that Unicode is probably the single biggest thing that we did not get in there that we should have got in there a long time ago.
But it was my reason to go to NXG a couple of years ago, and that was a big heartbreak when that broke.
I think the user interface, just the user interface, we could have a whole discussion on in terms of it. I mean, there's some things we're finally doing. The NXG was going to fix all that. It was going to have the Unicode. There's some other pieces, and now we are getting to it. But thank goodness, right? It is certainly time on this. So I think this user interface. I will say this. It's a viewpoint, but you can build really nice interfaces in LabVIEW, but it's just a little harder than it should be.
Is SVG anywhere on the horizon?
What's that?
SVG.
Well, stay tuned. I don't think it won't be in this release. Yeah, I think that the vector graphics, it would have been in NXG. They need to be in there. I agree with you. It's not going to be this release. I would tell you, I am all over that though for me on feedback. It's a really good point as well for a whole lot of reasons that we should do that and should have that.
So I know the last item is security to prevent unknown code from executing.
Yeah.
Are we introducing code signing to LabVIEW?
Not code signing.
Okay.
I'll show you a little bit more on that if
Okay.
you want to see it. Yes, they did. Security, security is a huge topic in itself. Just the whole CRA and what's happened with that. CRA is going to be a good thing from our point of view. We are working really hard on that. Yeah, I'm going to talk about a little about Linux RT in a moment, and everything we're working on the security part. But there's these other pieces. Once you start doing all that really core base work, we always learned that from Jeff Godofsky. He said, work on the big things and get that right, and then you can fill in around it. So that overall security and CRA efforts, and that's what's allowed us to do things like this on prevent the unknown code from running. So that's a nice observation.
The externally changed files list dialog.
Yeah.
Can you give me the one sentence on that?
Yeah. I almost need to show you a screen on that.
Okay.
I think it almost sounds better than it is. Yeah. So the externally changed files list dialog. It sort of does what it says. It's good. I think you'll like it. Yeah. Some people are probably going to really like it.
Is this like in a project if INI files internally changed or LabVIEW stuff? Okay.
That's what it does. Externally changed files. It'll bring up a dialog box in a project. For doing that. Because, the whole thing is that this whole part with CI/CD, that the user interface is the biggest one, right? The Unicode and getting vector graphics and some of those pieces. But probably almost next to that, you put Nigel on the fast by itself. Nigel we have to do. But I think after that, the CI/CD, that's probably in the top 3 list. And it's just doing things like making these community efforts and seeing things that have changed in the project. And the good thing is we've known we needed to do this for a while, but we are getting to it. Yeah.
I'm very happy of seeing where LabVIEW is with CI/CD.
Yeah.
I'm just dismayed that test end is still a couple years behind them.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we're doing everything we can to this up. Talking about LabVIEW is kind of there's two parts. Yes, I work for NI and all that, but I'm telling you, LabVIEW's always had this, it's kind of this world in of itself, right? And so I'm agreeing with you all. Now we're doing everything we can.
No, but I know that having the customers give some about feedback and you're sure your feedback is helpful. So
I'll give anybody who wants a card. You're always welcome to give feedback. Anybody shows up for a user group. Yeah, we will always take the feedback. And I mean, all the blue ones actually came from the wish list, right? That we put online. So, I mean, we really do like the feedback, and it really is some of the. I mean, there's some we're going to work on, there's some we have to do, but the rest of it is kind of just a vote system of just if somebody just requests things. So often that I think they'll be real key.
I have a question that
Yeah.
probably seemed kind of nebulous, but it pulls into this Unicode and front panel and CI/CD and that is localization. So the last time I went in to do some localization or even look into it, it seemed kind of clunky and we would like have to make sure we got tags in the right place for all of our different strings and make sure that they were all represented in this Humongo file, which then we'd have to hand off to somebody who actually knew that language. Is that going to be cleaned up in a way?
That is already, Unicode is going to make that, it's a quantum.
But that's
Quantum
what
leap that we're going to
makes-
finally get with that because
Okay.
that has been way too hard to do, right?
Because I can imagine Unicode
Yeah.
and Nigel or LLM sort of like making me some starting point files for localization for wherever I wanted. And then the person doesn't have 3,000 lines to go through. They can just sort of scan and say, oh yeah, that was about.
It is so right. And when you look at the world, you're asking in the US. So can you imagine if you have that question here, this is the 10x when you go anyplace else, right? And you go to France or Japan or China or somebody that really cares about the other languages. That Unicode, I mean, you're exactly right. That's the one that's the game changer.
Yeah.
For us. Yeah. But did anybody use the web browser front panel control?
I tried using it and I didn't get it to work and it was just a side project. So I just let it float away.
You know what? To just I gotta bring up a reason to show laughing, right? Sometimes. I really do think this is kind of cool, right? I mean, you go to layout.
So that's one way of using AI is generating them. Also web UIs and then displaying them. And that's the question is how easy to interact, how easy to catch the button pushes. Like,
Yeah,
Drag click, that's how I do it.
yeah. That's right. So here's the user interface control, and I mean, all you gotta do is wire it up.
So that was not what I was
Yeah.
trying to do when I was doing it.
Oh, I see. That is the way you start on this. Right? Just put in
Okay.
interface and there you go. Now what's kind of interesting, the thing that actually makes it useful though is it has all these invoke nodes and such that you can put on there.
so how is it easy to make a button? What is
For example, like you want to navigate backwards.
yeah, say it's JavaScript, whatever, it has a button. How
Yeah.
easy is it to catch,
Right.
click on that button in event structure? Do you have such examples?
It's flag too. It's
Say catch that sign in button.
right. And I'll show you. We'll run it first, right? So, and this is where, say you're doing text and doing a user interface and you want to go to and.com, bring it up there. Say that that's something for us. Put on the training and off we go. Now it's interesting because what you can do then is you can go to things like this. You can click the back button and that'll go to the previous one. Right. And so that's what, for example, the backwards has on there. And I stop here and
But how can I catch that the user hit that search button, for example,
Or
on
the-
that web page
From
from within LabVIEW code, from this
it's the event structure. Well,
from
fine.
data structure?
Exactly. See, it's a
How is it?
URL stream, right? So as soon as you put something different in there, then that's going to say, hey, the control just changed. So to go to this event, and in this case, it'll just call,
Right to the-
property node in this case, right? It makes a copy of it. So then,
Well, that's
See it again.
understandable.
yeah,
That
exactly.
It's
That's
loaded the
straightforward.
new URL, but once the URL is loaded, once we have a web page in that window,
Yeah,
it can have whatever control elements, web-based, like buttons, whatever.
that's-
How do I catch the user hitting those buttons on that web page? That's the key.
oh, right. You're not going to find that. That's a different. I don't think you're going to see that. You'd like that? I mean, I guess that's a next.
Well, apparently, because say that web page can be a web UI interface.
I understand, and you like
I
to see-
develop,
Because
right, with some UI,
Right.
with.
You can
some
tell
AI,
in your-
whatever.
yeah.
But you see what I mean, right?
if you're clicking on it, then you like to be able to control it.
I would be able to see the
I would expect you would debug that in the HTML or the
That-
JavaScript
So
side.
what you can do.
No. I want to catch that event in LabVIEw. You see?
I understand that this would be a next
So
one.
it would be the event that's sent to LabVIEW.
That's what I'm wondering.
The one thing I will say, that back from what Chris asked, is that you can't show HTML page, you can show HTML graphics as well,
Okay,
right? So as compared to just doing a web page. But you're asking for even taking the next step further if you're in it.
So there
Yeah.
are tons of tools now, right, that allow you to develop a web-based UI, which can be
Yeah,
watched through a browser, right? Or through this browser control, correct? You follow me? So those web UIs can have whatever buttons, fields,
yeah,
which if when they are in LabVIEw, I naturally would like to be able to interact with,
Right.
right?
you do bring up a good point, because we did have the GWeb development kit, and that was always okay. I don't know why. Number one, not enough people ever used it. And so we never really did much more than we probably should have or could have. Because that's the one you really could have done that, right? If you want to go interactive or bringing up the web. Because if you take a look at it, that was really just an abstraction of JavaScript.
Right.
I
So
mean, that, yeah,
my point is, why is it crucial now? Because there are tons of tools that can generate interactive
Right.
web-based UIs,
well,
which we would like to be able to integrate into LabVIEw, meaning not only output to the elements from LabVIEw code of those web UIs, but also, to catch the button pushes from those web UIs
I
into the LabVIEw.
why it's so important now is collaboration on the CICD. People are going to need to share this across the web. Yeah, so it's not even just web development, it's just even.
I understand, but
Look at different VIs from different, you're gonna be able to see somebody else's screen.
I just gave
Kinda see
you
what-
another perspective.
You did, no, I got, it's a good point, I understood, right? You'd like the next part. But if you do look in terms of the why, I mean, think now that if two people are in a VI, you're gonna be able to see it on the web. I mean, that's what's that'll come next on the CICD side in terms of why it's important, in terms of now. You can go down the whole JavaScript and come up with a whole set of things, like you said, interactive. I should be able to do a callback or see an event when something else changes, and maybe we can add that too. So
It's
we'll take that.
relevant due to its propagation of and the spread of AI generative tools, which generates a whole web sites, web apps, right? So it will be really logical to use such a web
But I don't,
as UI for
if it gets there, I don't want to do that. I want to go to the web service API call. I don't ever want to interact directly with the UI, because then when the UI changes, all of a sudden my code has to change. I want the web service API to interface with. Now, granted,
But if you created that UI yourself,
if I create the UI myself, I'm never going to use it, because I'm going to create a web service behind the scenes to do it. Now, if someone else created the UI, and I have to absorb what they did, and I'm forced into that limitation, okay, that's a whole nother thing. But then I'm also at the risk that they're going to make a breaking change to that I can't handle in my code.
That's another really interesting.
That's another. Yes.
And we're never going to answer that, but
Well, that's another aspect of.
But what if code never changed?
What?
Not that one. I got one in that
No, no. I was talking about strictly generating UIs for LabVIEW to be used in that web browser control using
I
AI.
understood the question. The good thing is, it's all, we're making progress on the user interface. And there's so much more that we can still do, but at least we're back in the game here again.
But that would be a game changer.
Okay, maybe point made. Okay. Now, I did put this up as well, and this one I'll say is part overall in terms of where we are, and part of it, I made some additions on this as well, but this is with AI and Nigel, and strap in here because there's a lot on this one. If you take a look from just AI, there's LabVIEW, there's text languages, and then there's Nigel without Nigel. And if you take a look, if you haven't seen in the last one, in the next release of LabVIEW, there will be code generation. And that's overall going to be a good thing. At the same time, we do not want your expectations to go too high. It's not going to be Claude. Okay, so if you're a Claude user, it's not going to be Claude.
It's gonna be 2023, open.
It needs to be any model the user wants to be used with.
We would love that. I'm telling you, it is so much work.
Because there are so many models coming out every freaking day, right?
Yeah, but then you got to build the training.
Exactly.
But
It's so much work.
But what's stabilized is that, for example, OpenAI interface, right? Which a lot of models support. The models themselves change like every day, right? But there are standards now. There is MCP, there is A2A, right? Which kind of stabilized. And then if Nigel allowed to switch basically like open code, to.
I disagree with him. I would rather you pick something.
Exactly. I'm telling you.
You lock,
I don't care what you.
you lock everybody into the model that they choose, which
Some users want that, though. I'm telling you, you'll be amazed. If you're a test engineer, I'm going to make a point in a moment. I'll say it now. If you're a test engineer, you are so busy right now, and you don't have time to even program. You don't have time to even look these changes. They can program, but they don't want to. You've got to bring a developer in, and you're going to have to bring a partner in if you want.
And I'm not going to take the time to try 6 different models to see which one. I'm just going to use
Now,
whatever one.
Sure, use it, but there should be a drop down that allows me to use any other model.
I'll say no, and then back. You brought up
Use it,
MCP,
use
so
it.
we do have an interface to LabVIEW for MCP, but it's an experiment. You can actually get it on VIP. And so there's parts we're doing.
Yeah, I saw that MCP server.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, that thing, I'm kind of, you better strap in and know what you're doing.
so you're aware, we buy from NI, and I'm trying to talk carefully as a Tektronix representative here, but I'm not. We buy from NI because we know what we're getting, we know the quality, we know the integrity, we know how things are going to work, and it's going to guarantee work within the environment, the infrastructure. Because of that, we want a guaranteed successful integration with whatever AI client you're using. And I do not want my engineers going off trying to experiment with a whole bunch of different agents and getting mixed results and mixed successes with different ones. I want guaranteed success.
You bring up such a good point with agents. I'm going a little internal now, but we all got to know from our president, we cannot send out any agent skills right now. We have to put all those. I'm telling you, it's a wild, wild west on that thing right now. I agree with you. Right? You got to be really careful. There's so much of this that's going to be all over the place. And I mean, just look at vibe coding. People are in their vibe coding that don't. I'm not sure they fully know what they're doing. And it's.
If they did, they wouldn't need the vibe. Said if they didn't know what they were doing, they wouldn't need.
They wouldn't invite them. That's what a lot of champions say too, right? They don't need it, right? Because they can already do it. That is a very, very interesting.
So I want
Yeah.
to me, a quality guaranteed working experience.
No LLM can you guarantee anything.
No.
The best one.
No, they can't, but I want the best experience that they're willing to sell me for a reasonable price point rather than flexibility to choose whatever experimentation of second-rate stuff.
So good. I think what we're going to get back to again is just back to saying, what does graphical programming, what does block diagram programming really give you? Maybe we don't have to do every single thing that a text program has. maybe we can constrain this and that could be a good thing. So stay tuned on that. Yeah, but so I mean we'll have it. It is interesting because I will touch on a few of these other pieces. Maybe I'll just keep going down the LabVIEW part for a moment. You know, you can do a lot of AI work without Nigel. I did a project. I was doing what was the National Lab a couple of years ago, and they wanted to take it was TensorFlow, the machine language tool, the deep learning, and they have this model and they wanted to interface that into LabVIEW. So the code was in Python. I just used the Python node in LabVIEW and did the user interface in the DAC part in LabVIEW. And is that AI? I'm not sure. AI is so associated right now with LLMs, but AI, there is a machine learning and deep learning part still too, AI as well. And so for some of that, I mean, you can already do some of these pieces. I'm not sure people even quite realize how powerful that Python node actually is, what we can do and pull off of it. So that's over here on the LabVIEW side. Now, I think it's also interesting on the text side about how much we're starting to do on text. And I almost should have put the point in here. I'm going to say it later, but I'll say it now first. If anybody was with NI during the 1990s, we had two packages. It was LabVIEW and LabWindows. And LabWindows was our C interface. And it created user interfaces for you, and it was pretty darn good. Yeah. And why in the world we got away from both is just a whole long story, because we should have always been both. There's a time when you want to use graphics, and there can be a time for text. And you know, on a smaller system, you can use all one or the other. You can do all LabVIEW up to a pretty large system actually for it. But sometimes it can be the other way too. But coming back on this, if you take a look, so already you can come down here and say test languages without Nigel. I'm not sure how much you've ever seen this, but we've had some of our engineers have gone in and they've done prompts and they should create a test for me. Like there was this power test. They said create a power test in C# using, and they gave it the directory for NI scope. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen Claude work, but it's pretty darn impressive. It goes in and finds all the material in that directory. And it takes those examples and it figures out how to write the code. It's kind of mind-boggling impressive. But so our drivers already work with that, right? And so we support this, right? And so it's going to be an and. I mean, we're going to figure out just kind of the best of both worlds. Now, I think it's also interesting when we come up here that we will have Claude support, or we will have Nigel support for Claude and the rest of them. If you take a look at the keynote from Data 1 from NI Connect, at the very end of it, we showed a glimpse of this in terms of it working, in terms of how it's going to work with these pieces. But I think it's actually very important if we go that if you take a look from test engineers now, they are so busy, but they do more than program. I mean, one of the biggest pieces is requirements. And this is one thing that we work on with Nigel. We're going to be able to take requirements and generate the code from that, and the requirements will not change. If you're in a regulated environment, your code cannot change. Right? If you do vibe coding, you can give the same prompt through Claude or take your pick and give a Copilot and so on, but you get different code. You kind of say, huh? But I tell you, things like requirements cannot change. And so you're going to see some more pieces that we're going to do on this. And we might even be able to generate those requirements. And it might even be a Python format that we put them in because we have full control over that. So this is part of what Nigel's going to do. It's not just vibe code everything, right? I mean, maybe we just let Claude do some part of that. But I think the Nigel piece of this is going to do things like support the requirements and some of those other pieces that are so big from a system point of view.
The thing that I would love that to be able to do is to analyze my existing set of code and tell me where I screwed up.
Now you just stay tuned for just a moment.
Okay.
I completely agree with what you just said. And I think that, let me come back to that. Give me just a few minutes.
Okay.
Because I think that is a huge point that you just brought up. But I think you can see here from this part, right? So we will be supporting. We have no choice right now, right, to do this from Claude, and it's compared to LabWindows, or we had Measurement Studio for a while that was doing the Microsoft tools, but now we'll support VS Code, right? So we'll support Python code inside of it. And then we did show a first example of that working. It was just the first example, but it does show that we see that. But back again, let's come back to some of your points, but here first, and this is I already said quite a bit of this, but here's the evolution of Nigel AI. It really started off as an advisor, right? That was that part where you had the LLM built in. He did a little bit with LabVIEW, like we said. Tessan probably did a little bit more. So that was a nice start last year, and it certainly, I tell you, it did get us associated with AI. That was a big deal, right? I mean, it kind of made us kind of cool again. Nationalism was always really cool for a long time, and we're kind of cool again now, right? I mean, just that whole AI piece of this. So that was huge. And now here comes these other parts. The LabVIEW code generation, Tessan will be able to generate sequences. See, that's text. And so that's very doable. Debugging, some of these other parts you can kind of look through. And I'll show you in just a moment from this LabVIEW Plus suite. So we will be bringing some of the other support in as well. And so this is the offering. And if you wonder what this box is, that's the agent box. But I tell you, that's strap in, huh? Yeah, because I think our velocity is actually pretty good on this one. As I say, let's keep throwing features into LabVIEW, but there's so much going on with these agents right now. I mean, read anything that says you better have some guardrails around some of this from when you get out there for all of us from whatever industry you're in. Test and measurement or anything else, but we will be moving into that. We don't have any choice. I mean, that's where the world is going. Okay, here, you can read some of this. I already mentioned quite a bit of this. I mean, you will be able to do prompts and get the ice from it. But again, don't put your expectations too high at the same time. Yeah, you will be able to do it. You can see some of the things, interface to hardware, analysis, logging.
Can it be told to not only generate LabVIEW code, but generate LabVIEW code using a particular framework?
Not we'll be putting all those things in, right? So what about active framework workers and so on? That all those pieces would be covered. We just got to get the first base piece working additional.
Yeah,
right. I mean, because DQMH is probably one we're going to ask about the most.
I don't know why you're so fixated on DQMH.
Hey, I almost didn't say it because of that. I think on one hand, I think DQMH is good, but it is not everything.
Just because Fabiola worked at NI at some point and saw who reactor framework, why did they get all those preferential treatment?
Hey, I told you, I think Working Framework did a good job too. So there are good pieces in there. This one could be a whole presentation by itself. So we will put Nigel into all these other tools as well. We already said Tessan will be able to generate sequences from given requirements. Flex Logger is going to get easier. Instrument Studio, Veriscan. I mean, these are all text-based, and so these are going to be pretty cool, actually. I mean, hopefully you've seen some of these, like Flex Logger, interactive DAC tool. Instrument Studio gives you interactive panels for PXI. With some other pieces that are being put in there too. So everything is just make it easy to get started, right? Yes, part of that should be LabVIEW, but it is interesting because part of this also you'll be able to start in Flex Logger or Instrument Studio, and it can still be an on-ramp to LabVIEW, right? Just let people do interactive, but maybe we don't have to make those things perfect because you never can. There's always going to be something else, and so to be able to make that and move across. If anybody did watch that first day keynote from NI Connect, it's actually pretty impressive that LabVIEW can now generate a plugin for Flex Logger. So if you want new capability, you can actually write it in LabVIEW and tie that into the interactive tool. I mean, that's a little bit advanced, but I think it's also a very good thing for the partner, for example, could do. Put that in for functionality and then give that to other folks as well. So that's some of these other pieces, and better standing part familiar, that's the HIL and real-time control part. I did want to spend just a moment about Python. We actually done pretty good work in Python. It's probably our own fault that we haven't marketed it more. But if you take a look, I mean, code generating Python can already be used in LabVIEW. We talked about that. The Python node, Tessan adapters, things like gRPC for interfacing. Due to bigger system, why can't you write part of it in Python, part of it in LabVIEW? Then you have to interface back and forth. And gRPC is a way to do that. Our drivers fully work, like DAC-MX in particular, we've done a really lot of nice efforts in terms of that. And so this is where, back again, when you tell Claude to generate Python code using DAC-MX, it's going to be able to do a nice job with this.
Current gRPC library published on GitHub is very far, softly speaking, from being any good.
We could have a whole
It's
discussion.
actually abandoned.
Yeah.
It was published, I know, maybe several years ago already.
That's a very interesting part on
There is
gRPC.
tons of issues there, and nobody.
the thing about gRPC, basically it is a good idea. The thing is that I come back again, it's really nothing that a test engineer is going to want to mess with. You've got to be a developer to start using gRPC. And the thing is, we put some things out there and it should have been stated almost more as a test case that we did some of them, because some of the abstractions that we put, we actually use gRPC in the products. And when we do gRPC in the products, it actually works really well. And you don't even have to see it then because we put an abstraction on
Right.
top of it. So,
So, but that library
Yeah.
that is available
Yeah.
is not good.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
And I don't understand why it was abandoned, because the very top level ideas of gRPC itself, for example, that you can describe basically API, entire API of some module on a very abstract high level, what's the structure of messages, which functions, take it.
And there is a lot.
And those four basic ways of communication, unary, binary, the client stream, server stream, and the bidirectional stream, they're basically two ways of any client server system to communicate with that. But the way it is implemented is terrible.
I'm going to say it could be better. So anyway, I'll agree with you. It could be better.
And especially for LabVIEW, it should and gRPC has all these asynchronous capabilities, which, would match perfectly if those same messages would go into LabVIEW queues, not
probably go
event
ahead.
structures.
We could probably do a whole presentation on gRPC. Again, I would agree with your general point that we can do better.
Well, this was for gRPC in particular.
For gRPC in particular, no, I meant I'm saying that in particular, yeah, on gRPC is correct. And this we just put up there. Why do people use LabVIEW? Why do people use Python? We already talked about that. But there's reasons for using Python, right? I mean, it's a widely used language and so on. So we don't have any choice, right, but to support it. And so that's that overall piece. And this is the part I mentioned a moment ago, where we were supporting both, right? I mean, I like to call it the yin yang, right? Of LabVIEW and text. And you see, we will continue to do more with both of these. And we actually created an ad, and this was back when, but we actually had it, National Instruments created the future of instrumentation software twice. There's a picture of LabVIEW and a picture of Lab Windows. And we probably need to do that today. But today I think it'd be a picture of LabVIEW and Python. Yeah, it is an and. It's gonna be an and with LabVIEW and Python. I work a lot with academic. We are bringing back academic. I'm not going to say it's a full court press yet. There's a lot of work we need to do, but at least some of that is coming back. But it's interesting. I think now there was a time when we probably could have just trained a student LabVIEW and they could have gotten the job and done just fine. But I think for where the world's going, I don't think it's fair to just teach a student LabVIEW now. I think you got to teach LabVIEW and at least one of the text languages like Python. At the same time, I don't know if just learning text languages are enough either. I think we should show them that there's this whole graphical world out there. Yeah, and that will be up to us to get back more and more on the academic side. But there's just an overall view of that too. But so the short story is that we got both.
Backing up on that a little bit, one of the reasons we still have to deal with lab windows is because of instrument driver generation, especially IVI drivers.
Yep.
Are you completely giving up on that, or is that going to be Python runnable, or?
I don't know if you saw or not. We did just put out another release of Lab Windows.
Okay.
I don't know if it could kill it. I mean, there's so many people who still use the doggone thing. We really did do a nice job with it. Yeah, there's so many people it's just not necessarily growing, right? But it's still got a base out there. So yeah, we did just put out a new release. So nowhere on here does it say we're killing Windows.
Another thing that has come up recently is the increase of usage of Rust because of its memory exclusivity.
Yeah.
And I mean, LabVIEW does a lot of that behind the scenes. It's much harder in LabVIEW to misaddress memory than in many text languages. Is that something that you guys are planning on pushing?
We have some fans that they think it's going to be LabVIEW and Rust. I mean, it's going to be LabVIEW and Python, and then C's the next one. Rust has always been interesting because it's kind of floating out there. just doesn't quite seem to get the critical mass.
Well-
I went in there and
There are governments who are
gonna make you use it. Yep.
forcing,
Yeah.
usage of it for, high precision environments because it doesn't have memory leaks nearly as bad as most other languages. But again, LabVIEW is already doing that. Is that something that you're planning on marketing?
We probably should, because again, we're gonna do more and more security.
Mhm.
So you saw some of the pieces here, you're going right to them in terms of of doing. So I do think the answer is yes.
Okay.
You need to put more of that inside of just LabVIEW itself, just to protect users.
Okay.
This one, I would just, I already made the point, but it was kind of interesting because, when you look at, I think, how does LabVIEW continue in the future? And part of it is the whole block diagram approach, but also there's this term called models of computation. And remember, we did a lot of work with academic, like Berkeley. We probably work more with Berkeley, maybe almost than anybody, but they gave us this term, the model of computation, that says no model of computation is perfect, right? LabVIEW is not perfect, C is not perfect, Python is not perfect. So you almost have to pick the right program in terms of what to use. And it is kind of interesting because test-stand, we've already done some part of that. Test-stand, you can put all those different adapters in. I mean, you can write an adapter from LabVIEW, from Python, from C, and so on. And I think we're going to see potentially more and more of this from LabVIEW as a system tool. We take that block diagram approach, and then what's behind that block? Who cares? Who cares if it's G or C or Python? As long as you can get that working together, and maybe we put a user interface on top of that. But I really do think there is something to graphics, right? In terms of from a system point of view. So I think this is back to this yin and yang. But I think Berkeley already somewhat gave us the answer to this for models of computation from years ago. And I think this is only going to get stronger now as we move into a world of AI. And here you talk about code reviews. I think this is absolutely huge. This I think will be another reason why LabVIEW will be around. And number one, I sort of make 2 points. One, I've always been surprised during the entire time of LabVIEW that LabVIEW users don't do more code reviews than they do. I wish somehow we almost could have made this a requirement. And if you think about what we do with LabVIEW, I mean, we put a tool in a lot of engineers and scientists' hands that were not trained in computer science. And in a way, that was a really good thing because we opened up computers to a lot of engineers and scientists. I mean, why in the heck are we who we are? I mean, that was why we enabled a lot of users to do a lot of really darn impressive work. Now, the thing that would happen though, is then they start adding code to it. Okay, that can be okay, but then they add code again. At some point, this just falls off. And this is where I think it should almost be a requirement that almost any end user should bring somebody to review your code at least once, if not twice a year. Yeah, and that I'll say is my viewpoint from this overall. I think that's been true for a long time. Now, it is interesting because the one more high level point I'll make on this one is that you can write a lot of bad code in LabVIEW. You can also write a lot of bad code in C and Python. LabVIEW has an inherent advantage on this though. When your code starts getting too big and too messy, it almost forces you to modularize. There's always an idea if you fill up a screen, and a screen, I don't know, usually it'd be like a 21 or 24-inch screen. But if you're modular, it's filled up a screen, it's time to modularize. It almost forces you to do it. There's nothing in text-based that makes you do that.
But thankfully, they've given us Zoom. So now.
Nice. All right, you need to have your point. Okay, that's a good point. Huh? So without Zoom, we're going to be careful. Huh? Yeah, that's nice. That was good. That was really good. But so I think this has been the truth for code reviews for a long time. But I think if you take a look at code reviews going forward, and I use a personal story on this one. I have a son that's pretty heavy into all this, right? I mean, he literally got his master's in AA from Stanford and AI, and I don't know, right? That sounds good and fine. But it was interesting because I tried to get him to NI, and I haven't got him yet. We'll see if we work on some of these pieces as we go. But it's interesting that as he was doing the interviewing, and this was a few years ago when he got done on which squads, he was interviewing, everybody then gave you algorithms, right? You had to be good at algorithms, and he went through all of them, right? I mean, you did all the Google interviews and Amazon interviews. good for him. I guess he got offers, he had these startup efforts and so on, and some finance company finds him, right? There's a whole other story in itself. But it's interesting because he's not doing the interviewing. And you know when he interviews now, you know what they do? They put vibe code in front of the candidates and they say, tell me what this code does. They effectively ask them to do a code review. And you know what? They don't expect them to get it right. It's too hard. What they look for is the methodology, right? Of how would you take a look at this code? But I think this idea of reviewing code, think of all this code that's going to be vibe coding now.
So they will just take that code and throw it into whatever Claude and ask what's wrong with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think code reviews overall, I think they'll become more important than they've ever been.
So you generate it in Claude, then you have GPT to check it and what's.
Exactly. I mean, I'm telling you, when did you start worrying? Huh? This is back again. These are the guardrails that AI needs. Yeah, and that can be we can get philosophical later. It's really easy to get
The
philosophical.
problem is when they are both trained on the same code base.
Okay, be careful, huh? I will say, I really think LabVIEW has an inherent advantage on this. Yeah, just from the idea of being able to look at graphic code and telling it, does that work or not? I really think there's something about looking at a block diagram that's just easy to read and a whole bunch of text. Yeah, so that's probably partially my view of this going forward, but I think there is a certain reality to this as well about the importance. Number one, the importance of code review, there is no argument on that one. Yes, as I just said, you defeated interviewing now. If you're going to interview with those hardcore AI companies, you better be ready to do a code review because that's the question you're going to get asked. But I think directly in our world, I think it's going to be huge too. Back again, think how many regulated industries that we work with, right? Aerospace and defense and automotive and medical and so on. So I think
The push is to automate that too,
that's big. Yeah, exactly.
the code reviews.
If you can automate it, I think that is a heck of an opportunity. Yeah, for somebody, right? From LabVIEW and the rest of it. Okay, how are we doing? Are we?
I mean, it's 7:14, about an hour in.
I had a feeling I'd be able to film it.
Yeah. I wasn't worried
I
about
have
it.
one more topic if you want. This would probably I can probably do it in 15 or 20 minutes.
I like
I'll leave it up to you
RG and
guys.
FPGA, so.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it myself. So I did want to give you an update just on some of what we're doing because I will say again, remember the preface of this. I mean, I think it can be contended. Maybe there's others, but LabVIEW is one of the few tools that can be used for desktop, real time, and FPGA.
Is new hardware coming out?
Stay tuned. The answer is yes. Man, it
Because
is
that
time.
hasn't been updated.
It is incredible. Okay, you read it. You did. There's a whole story there. If you want to stick around afterwards, I'll tell you. But I just feel for CompactRIO. Yeah. CompactRIO, all these management changes that I went through, it was never CompactRIO's fault. The management that took over for NI for a while just didn't like CompactRIO. It was just unbelievable.
That's hard to believe because
Actually,
that's what was used.
it's unbelievable. But I will say we have a leader now. Ritu's totally into this. Ritu Favre, our new president, she's all in on this. Yeah.
All these ancient Intel CPUs and it for
We got to get back to ARM and so
decades,
on.
you
I
know.
know. You are absolutely right on all that, but I'm telling you, I give Ritu so much credit. It's just heartwarming. It was hard to burn it. How in the world we did not do this, but
People abandoned using, NI hardware because, on one hand, like a couple of 3 years ago, people would be grabbing actually those decommissioned CRIOs.
yeah,
I was on the project and not for 20K, but for just 2K,
Yeah.
and we still working fine for their problems. But then, when they wanted to buy new, it was not for sale at all, and I was just stopped selling cereal.
well, it was incredible. It's everything you're saying is correct. And now here I've got to be a little careful, but I'll go ahead and
And
say
people thought, oh, it's the dead end, and they abandoned that, and they switched to Siemens.
You almost could have thought that. The good thing is we still kept C-Series going, and we kept just enough going on that itself. But anyway, you're going to see a whole lot more that's going to come. So stay tuned.
I mean, the main controls, the serial controllers. where you would put the symbol.
If you want to stick around afterwards, I'll show you. Anybody wants to stick around, I don't want to do it. I mean, I shouldn't do that one up here kind of in the, yeah, of our public side, because that's still kind of a little bit under wraps, but I'll also tell you, it's not that long. Yeah, so, you wanted one, I'll give you one observation on serial from big picture point of view. You know what country in the world sells the second largest number of serials for us? Turns out it's Italy. And why do you think would it be Italy? Well, Italy doesn't have the production test of everybody else. And so they have to still sell serial. So they've done a really good job of this. I'm telling you, you go certain places to just warm your heart. If you ever want to warm your heart for serial, you go to Italy. Yeah, but if they can do it, because we never did abandon it. It sure looked like it did, but I'm telling you, it all worked, right? LabVIEW real-time works, LabVIEW FPGA works, it all works. Yeah, we still have a lot of successful applications. But if you look from a marketing point of view, you would not think so.
Yeah, but they were deployed in a lot of places in China, and then started to get into commission, but no new stuff.
Yeah, okay. New is coming, huh? I'll just make a couple points here. First is going to be on LabVIEW FPGA. And so it is a bit of a reminder that, I mean, high performance monitoring, control all the tight loops that it does. But I think we've almost had to remind people, and this is where, and again, it's just nice having read you back again. Think about an FPGA. FPGA is an AI processor, right? I mean, why did AMD buy Xilinx? Because it's an AI processor at the edge. And what does an FPGA do well? It's low latency. Low latency IO. I mean, if you want an inference engine, use a GPU, right? That's what they're made for. They're very good at that. And we're going to stay tuned. We're going to do more and more with GPUs as well. You're going to have to put GPUs on controllers. So we're going to do that. But we're going to continue on this on FPGAs as well, because if you want the best low latency response you can get using FPGA, yeah, you just put that out on the edge, and there's nothing better. And again, we have AMD back in this thing now from this. And so I think that's pretty darn powerful. And of course, LabVIEW FPGA did open up FPGAs to a lot of users too. Remember we said we did that with LabVIEW, but we did the exact same thing with FPGAs. And then that's why it doesn't have any choice but to continue. And a lot of different applications it's used. Here's CRIO. So here's the controllers that are out there now, right? The high performance, the cost optimized, hardware customizable, SPRIO. And I will say, if I just take a permutation into the future, what do you think the biggest need is?
That's what I said.
You said.
Range control.
I'm repeating in terms of what you said. I'm doing a little confirmation in terms of what you said. So stay tuned just a little bit longer. But it's not going to be too much more. And you're gonna hear something more. And now I'm going to talk about Linux real time here for a moment. Anybody that follows LabVIEW real time, it has been interesting because back to your point, users of LabVIEW real time don't really care what the operating system is. All they've ever wanted is a real-time operating system. As long as they've known that's under the hood, they've been fine with this. And if you do look at the history of LabVIEW real-time, we used to use FarLab, right? And that we did FarLab at the beginning so we could run Windows DLLs. And so we were able to move Windows users to a real-time operating system. And I'd just say it worked great. I mean, we definitely made the right choice there. Then processors went on. Then we had to go to VxWorks. And we kind of went past that. And then we went to Linux. And so we now have our own distribution of Linux. I mean, that's been for over 10 years that we've done this. I don't even know if a lot of people know that, but exactly. I think that you didn't have to, right? But it is interesting because there's probably maybe two reasons why people are caring about this now. Security is the biggest thing. This whole cybersecurity and CRA, we're going to have to start showing up patches. We really haven't had to do that either. We actually patch it every quarter, but we've never announced it. Now you can get on a mailing list if you ever want to have the updates. You can go to ni.com/security. And if you go on there, you can get on a mailing list, and you will get the notification when we do the security updates now from going forward. So that's a pretty big deal for us. And so with Linux RT, so LabVIEW real time runs on top of that, and so does Veristan. It sort of had this whole thing under the hood, and again, it just kind of shifts with both of them. Well, here's an interesting view. LabVIEW Linux RT could actually be used with C and Python as well. Now we haven't opened that up yet, but we have the capability to do it. And here's a bit of a quiz question for you. I don't know if you'd ever remember this or not, but with LabVIEW real time, we had it running on a PC at one point. Anybody remember that? It's probably in the 2006, 2007 time, but that was ways back. It was 20 years ago. I was directly working with the real-time team on when we did it, and we put it out, and I'll never forget it. We got a Dell laptop, and we certified the whole thing. We made it work with all our drivers, and it was all good, right? I mean, you literally could put it on there and use PC hardware to run real time. Our challenge, Dell just made so many changes to that PC. They started changing the SATA hard drive. They started changing the network cards. And I got to be a little careful here, but the vendor we were using just could not keep up. That was one of the reasons why, as I said, that first vendor we used, it was letting us run Windows DLL, a really, really good thing, but they couldn't keep up with this. And so now we come back by running on Linux RT. We're not stopped from being able to do this again.
It's yours.
That we exactly, right? And so you just got to make a business plan out of this. You just got to make it make business sense. And we are so busy right now. This new serial controller is the one that we absolutely have to do that. And the security is the other one, right? So those would be the first big ones. And then we'll see about something else as well. So that's already a lot of the message I think that you can see from this. But this one we have been doing a lot of work on. Yeah. And if you take a look, okay, why do we do it? I think people know most of this. Flexibility in Linux. It is deterministic. If you're familiar with it, we turn on the real-time capability, right? There's certain filters that you can hit to make it real time. You can kind of look. But down here is that big one, the commitment to security. Linux is just better, right, for security on this. So that I think is a pretty big plus as well. So here's some of the recent updates that we've made. It's kind of interesting that I don't know if anybody's used LabVIEW real time, but so LabVIEW real time, we put a real time execution tool in there that's really good because it lets you see what it does. But we've actually deprecated that now because we're not keeping up. But we've replaced it with a new one, and you can now do Linux kernel traces. Now there's good and bad to this because this was a lot easier to use. It was in LabVIEW. It was in LabVIEW. This one's going to take a little bit more knowledge, right? And this is where how far out of our kind of main persona do we go? Yeah. And we're going to look at it. Hopefully we can make this as easy as possible. Right. And so the debug, USB system replication, this has been big too, right? So you can put this on a USB stick and replicate it. And you're going to see deployment's a big thing too, right? Packages, we put a lot of Linux packages in this. This is what's really hard actually about making the announcements is that we can change all these things now and update it. And as long as we do it and we take care of all the big security, with Linux, there's certain patches you have to make. They're called CVEs. For the critical vulnerabilities, you have to fix each one of those. And we do fix these every quarter, right? So every big one of those in Linux that comes out, we actually fix it every quarter. But we never announced it. But we're gonna have to start doing it now. So, and part of it, we also have all these packages that we use as well. So the updates that we see there, that we have, I think this one's a pretty key one too. This gets to be deployment. And so now you can use Docker containers within Linux real time, right? And so if you have a Docker container, you can use it with Linux real time now, and you can use it with Linux RT. So that's a step forward. And I'll tell you a note just in a moment, even a step further that we're going to go. And here I'm going to two more points. I'm on this one. And here I call this in consideration, but it's pretty much going to do it. But we will now containerize Linux real time. And what that means is that we'll be able to run this as a Docker, right? So for deployment, I think this is going to be pretty big. And usually when we're training for our NI folks, we have System Link, and System Link base is a really good thing. But you have to buy a separate piece of software. And if you're deploying enough systems, System Link is a really good thing for that. But you're going to be able to do this for one-off. So if somebody creates a one-off, they won't have any other costs, right? You're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to distribute it as a container. So if you do a serial system and you want to deploy this, you'll be able to do it on a container. And the last one here is just one more on the security side. So we will have secure boot as well. So this will be within a release or two that we'll have. So that's just a few things we're doing on it too. So just so you see that on the real time in FPGA, it's not just hardware, because we do have to do the hardware. And when we have new hardware, it probably give us an excuse to get to turn all this on. It was, again, the new hardware, the security was the other big piece on this one also. Thoughts, questions on anything of that? Okay.
So it will still accept the existing PC volumes, right?
Oh yeah. So gosh, yes. Yeah. That C-series was
New controllers are coming. That's the main thing.
New controllers are coming. That is right. Yes. And I could make a future statement out there that Well, we always have also.
There's a hope.
There is hope. Yeah, there is hope. It's better than hope. Yeah, it is. Just stay tuned is the only thing I'll say on that one. It's more than hope now. Yeah, it's a full project already in place.
They were quite with quirks and using especially FPGA when reading writing from inputs outputs. You have to name them explicitly. So you couldn't dynamic, you couldn't put, the name of the input. I want to be reading into a variable, and then within FPGA program, to read dynamically from either that input or that one, depending on the value of that variable.
Any FPGA feedback that you want to have, write it down and send it to me. Yeah, because we want to collect as much by the FPGA feedback as we can. Yeah, just so we can see.
That was a big, I kind of recall because I haven't done it in a while.
Well, we're gonna give you an excuse to do it again.
Yeah, I kind of looked a bit to me.
It's not abandoned anymore, huh? Yeah. Okay, that's what we're up to though, huh? Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
For me, thank you.
Okay, all right, yeah. Nice to be back, and that said, I think you got to see a lot of things first here. Huh? Yeah. So we'll be filling the rest of the world in the next.
Maybe off camera, as you said.
Yeah, some of it, but yes, well.
I think I'm going to stop the online recording.